So I'm a boy mom, and I was very surprised to learn that I didn't get to do the fun things I thought I might, like do some crafts and let's do coloring. No, instead, essentially every time I walk in the house, it's, "Mommy, let's fight." And then he just jumps on me, and I have so many bruises. That is just, it's not what I expected. I've also learned so many different types of truck names. I know all of the different trucks.
Yep.
And it's not something I expected to learn in my life, but here we are.
Here we are. I'm with you on that. It used to just be that's a digger or a tractor.
Right.
Dump truck, I guess, would be the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, oh, no, that's a wheel loader.
Exactly. That's an excavator. That's a backhoe. I know all of them. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
It's great to fill my brain with things like that. It's very useful.
Of course.
And there's so much space.
Of course. That's very useful in your work, right?
Exactly.
Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a CPA podcast presented by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The center is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. For the record, this CPA podcast isn't about bean counting. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics.
Hello, I'm Erin Schwartz, Director of the CPA Education Foundation. I am your host for this episode, the first episode of what I hope will be a series of Uncommon Sense episodes celebrating the first ever class of CPAs in Alberta who joined the profession without a legacy designation. What do I mean by that? Well, back in 2015, 10 years ago now, the unification of the regulated accounting profession in Alberta was officially completed with the proclamation of the Chartered Professional Accountant Act in July of that year. Prior to that, there had been 3 regulated accounting designations, and since then, there's just been one. Under the terms of the new CPA Act, the thousands of accountants who already held one of the so-called legacy designations at the time of unification were required to use their legacy designation in combination with the new CPA designation for a minimum of 10 years. In other words, a legacy chartered accountant named Sarah Tang, for example, would be known as Sarah Tang CPA CA. But in February of 2016, the first ever class of CPA candidates who did not have a legacy designation graduated, earning the straightforward CPA title. With the profession celebrating 10 years of unification this year and moving towards the 10th anniversary of that first class of CPAs in Alberta, this episode of Uncommon Sense features Katherina Richard, one of those inaugural CPAs from February 2016. On this episode, I'll chat with Katherina about what it was like to be what some called a pioneer and others called a guinea pig, one of the first non-legacy CPAs. We'll explore what being part of that milestone moment meant to her, discuss her career path since earning the designation, and talk about the work she does as a CPA today. Kat is a partner at MNP in Edmonton and a member of MNP's Assurance and Accounting Services team. She works one-on-one with First Nations and Metis settlements, as well as with Indigenous entrepreneurs, helping her clients reach their organizational goals. Her services include assurance and audit, reviews, and compilations. With close to a decade of First Nations government experience, Katherina develops strong working relationships with her clients, allowing her to better understand how to provide support and tailored advice. Thanks for being here, Kat.
Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here. And by the way, congratulations on becoming a partner at MNP.
Thank you.
You've obviously done very well since earning your designation just under 10 years ago. Do you want to give us a bit of an overview of your journey from, newly minted first CPA in 2016 to partnership today?
Yeah, for sure. I can't believe that it's almost been 10 years. I feel like it was yesterday that I was writing the first CFE. But soon after I received my CPA, I became manager at MNP. I was a manager for about 2 years. And then in 2018, I was promoted to senior manager. I went on a mat leave in 2019, so I was off for just under a year then, and then came back and I was promoted to partnership on June 1st, 2022.
Congrats.
Thank you.
And throughout that time, you've always been within kind of the First Nations group at MNP, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I started doing my first audit was out at a Metis settlement. I've sort of continued since before I've had my CPA all the way through my career to partnership.
Yeah. And how does it feel to put the word partner after your name?
It feels really good. It's, I've worked really hard for it. And so, it definitely pays off in the end. But, I still struggle sometimes with that imposter syndrome. It loves to creep in and kind of get to the back of your mind and say, did they really choose the right person? Am I the one they promoted to partnership? I don't know. It feels wrong. But no, it's hard work, and I'm happy to say that I feel really good about where I'm at. And yeah, it's really exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think as a young woman, you are more prone to that imposter syndrome. I know I feel that, and that's just, a side effect of the society we're in. But also it's just so important to combat that. And it's so good to see you in a partnership role because you have earned it. And also now lots of folks going through, whether they're in post-secondary or in the PEP program or whatever, they have you to have as a role model and see that hey, it's doable, right?
For sure, yeah. And it's that it helps yourself when you realize I've done all these things. It helps combat that, right? So yeah, it feels good.
So before we dive into more about your work, let's talk a little bit about what it was like to be part of that first ever class of non-legacy CPAs in Alberta. So at the time, what did it feel like? Did it feel significant? Did it feel like a letdown? Was it stressful? What was that like for you?
I don't remember it being extra stressful, put it that way. I think you're worried about taking whatever program after university and exceeding in that and working at the same time. And so I didn't see it as stressful from that way. There were times when we were nervous, I think, as a group on what is this actually going to look like? We didn't really know. We in the past, you would have understood talking to people ahead of you, what the program looked like, what assignments to expect and that sort of thing. So I think from that side, it was maybe a little bit stressful that way. I think more, and I thought about this a lot, and I think with every generation, we love to say, myself included, oh, the generation after me has it easier. We had it so much harder than they did. And I think that's continued forever. But if anything, that's probably what I felt as the group before us would kind of say, oh, well, we had it way harder than you guys are going to have it. It's going to be way easier. And I definitely don't think that that's the case probably for any generation. But I think that's just instilled in us. We always feel like we had it harder.
Yeah, for sure. Although I do feel now I don't do that as much because of what the world has been in the past 5 years, where I'm looking at, university students who are going through during the pandemic and things like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, no, maybe I didn't have it harder.
100%. So true.
You get this one.
Yeah. There's no way that I would feel as confident going into it today as I did when I was 10 years ago, for sure. Yeah.
Although, to be fair, we went through early motherhood in the pandemic. So, when those kids are having kids, we'll be like, we had this harder.
Exactly. Try doing this with nothing else and being stuck home all the time. Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have to talk about it. The commercial, when we were first going through, that first class of CPAs, we all like to refer to the original commercial for the CPA designation. Tell me about that.
Oh, the helicopter. Everyone remembers the helicopter. I remember watching that commercial with my cohort at work going through the program, and we would make so much fun of it. We were just like, there's no way you're getting on a helicopter as a CPA and getting, to do all these crazy things. I will say I have not been on a helicopter. However, I have been on a surprising amount of small planes going to very remote locations. So, maybe it actually wasn't as far off as I thought it would be when we first saw it. I've sat in the co-pilot seat of many tiny planes. I have landed on some very interesting gravel runways. And so, who knew? 10 years later, it wasn't that far off. Maybe not as prestigious, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. If you can share maybe one of the most interesting places you've been or most unique.
Yeah.
Sounds like probably a lot of unique places, but
For sure. Well, the farthest north I've ever been is to Tuktoyaktuk.
Okay.
And so as part of that audit, I actually got to see so they're building a permanent road from Inuvik to Tuktoyaktuk. And so I actually got to see them set off dynamite and sort of blow things up.
Whoa.
And definitely not something I was expecting to get to see in my career. So that was a really interesting experience. I got to see sort of the underground permafrost freezer rooms. So that was really interesting. And most recently, I've been up to Great Bear Lake, which is one of the largest lakes in the world. And so it's a beautiful area, absolute pristine lake. And so that's been really, really interesting too. And it's just, I get to go to all these places that I never would have if I wasn't in the role and the position that I'm in right now and having my designation. And I could have never guessed that going through university that these are the things I get to experience, but it's been great.
For sure. That's really cool. Okay, so notes for the commercial, not a helicopter, tiny plane.
Tiny plane.
Add dynamite also.
Yeah, exactly. See?
That should have been one of the clips.
For sure it should have been. I don't know what they were thinking.
Right. Oh, man. Is it challenging? It sounds like you do travel a fair bit. Is that challenging for you to be away so much or just to be on the road a lot and that kind of thing?
For sure. Yep. It's definitely one of the things I think I struggle with the most. I think people talk a lot about balance and they want to have this work-life balance. And I don't really love that term. I feel like balance makes it sound like you have to do everything all at once. You have to put everything into your career. You have to put everything into your family and being a mom. You have to maintain friendships and relationships and then still find time for yourself. And I just don't think that's realistic. There's nobody, you're setting yourself up for failure. Nobody is going to be able to do all of those things at once. And so honestly, I've tried to shift my mindset to be more, what am I going to focus on right now? Maybe, maybe it's work. Right now is a busy time of year.
Yeah.
And so work is my main focus right now. And then I'll have a sick kiddo at home and, that will be my main focus and work will have to be put to the side for a day or so. And then, sometimes I need a moment for me. And so I'm going to focus on that. And I think it's, instead of trying to fit it all, it's trying to not feel guilty when you're choosing to have those different focuses. And that is okay. Because the guilt is really what is so hard more than anything. And I think I would say, when I'm with my son and he's happy I'm there, and for sure he's sad when I'm not. But I think it's more the guilt I put on myself for being away that I struggle with than him struggling with me not being home.
Totally. It's not the problem isn't the actual situation. The problem is the feelings about the the guilt, right? Like that's the struggle.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to think too, I think it's good for our kids to see us succeed in this way and be happy in this way. I know I am a much better parent when I am working and thriving in my work. When I was on parental leave with my kids, that is not my place to shine. And that was the focus for a time. But coming back to work, I become, I think, a much better parent. And I think it's great for them to see parents who kind of chase their passions and work hard.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I was exactly the same as you. I enjoyed my time on maternity leave being at home, but I am a better mom working for sure. And I have so much respect for moms who do stay at home because that is a hard, hard job. One I am not suited to do. And so, I think I have a lot of respect for them, but I also feel like exactly like you said, I am a better parent being present when I am home, and really focusing on the relationship than trying to do all of it all the time. But you're right. I think it is such a good thing for our kids to see, we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So as kind of we've talked about a little bit, a lot of your work, most of it, I think, is focused on serving and supporting First Nations and Metis settlements. So a two-part question for you. And, you mentioned you didn't think in university that this is maybe what you'd be doing. So how did that become an area of professional interest for you? And I guess maybe talk a little bit more, too, about what type of services you and your group are providing. Like, what does that actually mean to be working in this sector?
So I've always said, as an auditor, I don't want to argue with other CPAs over accounting standards. It just doesn't interest me. There's some people, I think, who, that is their area, and I absolutely respect that. But it's not mine. And so I felt like this was an area where I could focus and really feel like I'm giving back as much as I can. I wanted to be there to help and to advise communities. And so, feel like I'm making at least some sort of difference in the community, especially in those more remote locations. And so when I saw that MMP had this area of focus right away, it was something that I was interested in and wanted to get involved in. And then as I got to know the clients and the different communities, I just fell in love with it, and I knew that was exactly where I wanted to focus my practice on.
Amazing.
And then, as part of one of the things I really do enjoy the most about MNP is the breadth of services that we offer. I've worked with clients on digital projects, so implementing ERP systems, maybe new filing systems, even just hardware like server rooms and getting them the equipment they need to those locations, to doing obviously tax consulting for sure, looking at, maybe whether a gas station makes sense in their community or not, working with them on valuations, looking at buying maybe companies or businesses, to things like investing in pipelines. And so we've gotten to do so many new and different things. And so even though I'm an auditor, I've been involved in so many different types of projects. And the one great thing is, since we have all of those areas of focus in our firm, I don't have to, if the clients come to me for a question, something that they're looking for that they want to do, we have the ability to help them rather than going to somewhere outside. I think one of the most important things working in community is building that trust. Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time to build that trust. And once you have it, it's so important not to lose it. And so, at least having all of these different service lines in our firm, I feel like I can bring them to the right people, and I can know that they will get the same client service from anyone else in our firm that they would from me. And that's so important, because if I'm, advising them to go talk to someone down the street or a different business, I don't know what service they might receive. And so, that's really important to me, that they can get that great client service that I know they will.
Yeah. And you're still able to manage that relationship.
Exactly.
Even though you're maybe saying, I have no expertise in this area, but I'm going to get you an expert.
Exactly. And there are differences working with communities. And so having some of that knowledge that I can pass on to my fellow partners to say, hey, you need to know these things about this community to be able to work with them. These are their values. This is what's important to them. And so having, being able to have that conversation and sort of convey that knowledge that I have, I think is a really valuable skill.
Absolutely. And again, just leads to that better client service, that now your clients are getting that, right?
Exactly, for sure.
Certainly doing a lot of important work. Sounds really rewarding. What are some of the challenges that come with this area of practice for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of perception out there on what it's like working in a community. I think that some in the profession really want the prestige of working maybe with doctors or dentists or, really large companies. And so they shy away from working with communities. But, like I've mentioned, I've gotten to do so many of these huge different projects, and I've really widen my skills of what I can do as a CPA, not just an accountant, that I think it's really sad if people are missing out on the opportunity to work with them and to develop these relationships. Because like I said, once you are that trusted advisor, you really are part of the community. And I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that same relationship may exist in all types of industries. And so I honestly am lucky and I'm happy to be working there. We've mentioned that the travel can be a challenge. I think a lot of communities really value that face-to-face relationship, which is so important in building that trust. And so yes, it does mean that I'm out of town quite often. But again, without that, I wouldn't have the same relationship I do with my clients. And so you put in what you get out. And so, I really do enjoy it.
Yeah. And that it sounds like that's such an essential part of building that relationship and that trust. And without that, neither you nor the communities are succeeding.
Exactly.
So jumping maybe back a little bit to the profession, 10 years. So you said it's gone by really quickly. So thinking back to being a new CPA, if you were to talk with some of, our fresh graduates that just kind of recently convocated, what advice would you give them about how to maybe figure out their dreams, chase their dreams, achieve their goals as they kind of move into this next phase?
I think I would give them the advice that my aunt, who's also a CPA, gave me when I started my career. And that was, you need to work hard, really hard for 10 years. It's not work hard until you get your designation and you're good to go. You need to work hard for 10 years and then you'll start seeing the benefits of that. And so in my mind, that doesn't mean work a million hours. Anyone can work a million hours, but instead I think it's really focusing on the quality of your work, being committed to whatever it is you want to do in whatever area, and really focusing on those things to sort of get where you want to be. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be putting in, 12-hour days or anything like that, but
although it might be.
It
for
might
some
be.
people,
For some
that
people.
is what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's whatever it means to you to get where you need to go. Because if you put in the work, if you put in the effort, it will pay off for you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I have two questions left for you. So at this point in your career, what does having the CPA designation mean to you today? We talked a little bit about that uncertainty at the beginning, but now 10 years later, what does that mean? And what does the future look like for you career-wise?
Having my CPA is so important in that, I can send an email to maybe a potential new client who doesn't know me, who doesn't know much about me at all. They see those letters behind my name and they already have an impression of what I can do and the skills that I have without me telling them anything at all. They can see the value I bring to their business. And I think that is so important, and it really shows what the profession has done and what we all as professionals have sort of made the profession become. And I also think it gives me confidence. We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome before.
Yeah.
And so when I see the work that the profession does and I get to have those letters behind my name and see what it means to people outside the profession recognizing that, it gives me that confidence that I need to fight that imposter syndrome. So thinking, okay, I passed the CFE, I got these letters and I did that. Nobody else did that for me. And so it does help boost that confidence and really fight that imposter syndrome too.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And as for the future?
Yeah, the future is exciting. 10 years ago, when I got my designation, I always had the goal of being partner. And so really exciting that I'm here and able to say that I've made that. But there's still so much to learn. Even in the 3 years I now have been partner, I've learned so much. And so, I don't know where I'll be 10 years from now, but I think I'll still be working with communities at M&P as a partner and hopefully finding some more time to contribute in other ways as my kiddo grows up more and my focus can shift into different areas. But all I know is that my CPA has given me so many opportunities too now that I know into the future it's going to be the same wherever that takes me.
For sure. Yeah. Especially when we're, again, like the way the world has been these past few years and where it's going, just the rate of change of everything and knowing that, okay, like I've got these letters, there's that confidence that comes with that.
Exactly.
And I've got all the opportunity to learn and just figure out the change as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up our discussion today. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you and start kind of our reflection on this last decade, which again, can't believe it's been a decade, but thank you for taking the time to be here and to speak so openly and authentically about yourself and your career.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Today's discussion with Katherina Richard is the first of what I hope will be a series of Uncommon Sense episodes featuring members of that first ever class of non-legacy CPAs in Alberta. So watch for future episodes on this topic in the coming months.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshi CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation to the CPA Education Foundation by the late Brian Heshi. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. We would like to acknowledge that the CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The CPA Education Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments on the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshi CPA Knowledge Center, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. Thanks for listening.